Part 21. The legitimate daughter returns, the real daughter is reborn. Author, Past and Present. Chapter 201. Chapter 201 Business as Usual. Northwest, the Khan's Palace. Zimiao leaned on Yu Hualin's chest and spoke softly, "Khan, the second prince is now in the hands of Xiao Shenjiao, what are you going to do?" Yu Hualin took hold of Zimiao's slender fingers and teased them. "Are you so worried about the second prince? Khan, as you said, the second prince is your child, so of course the slave family will be worried about you." Yu Hualin snorted softly, "This king's son is very independent. This time can be regarded as a lesson to him." After saying that, he straightened up, and Zimiao also stood up, looking at him in confusion. "Come here, change your clothes." "Khan, what are you doing?" Zimiao took the clothes handed over by the servant and put them on for Yu Hualin. Yu Hualin said in a rough voice, "I would like to go meet the Xiao Shenjiao." Obviously, Yu Hualin planned to lead the army on an expedition. Zimiao was stunned. "Khan, aren't you afraid that Xiao Shenjiao will attack the second prince directly? He is my king's son, and it is his honor to die for me." There was no hesitation on Yu Hualin's face, and he was not worried about Ashina Yang's safety at all. In his opinion, the moment Ashina Yang was caught, he was no longer a living person. It's not worth his worry. Zimiao wanted to say something, but when she met Yu Hualin's cold eyes, she swallowed her words. When Yu Hualin disappeared, she hurriedly changed her clothes and walked out. Just before he returned to his bedroom, a dark shadow fell in front of Zimiao. "Mr. Yan, the eldest prince wants to see you." "What?" Zimiao raised his head in surprise, his vision went dark, and he fainted. I don't know how much time passed, but Zimiao slowly opened her eyes. The surrounding environment is very unfamiliar. But her thoughts quickly came to her senses. Before she fainted, she clearly heard the other party saying that it was the eldest prince who wanted to see her. "Zimiao, or should I call you Wumio?" The figure of Ashinaju appeared in front of Zimiao. Her constricted pupils were filled with the other person. "How do you know?" Zimiao felt a chill running through her body. "Are you always pretending? How could a good-for-nothing prince know her identity? You think too much." Ashinaju glanced at Zimiao strangely. This daughter of King Ruren looked very smart, but why did she act stupid when she spoke? "It's not so much that I'm pretending, but it's my silly brother who is too self-righteous. What happened to the second prince has something to do with you." Zimiao could no longer care about anything else, and his eyes were filled with panic. The second prince has been captured, and no one can come to save her. But Ashinaju had no intention of dealing with her. Instead, he brought a glass of wine and handed it to her. "I'm not tying you up. If you want to leave this room, you can go out at any time." His free hand pointed at the door not far away. The door is open, and Zimiao can see the scene outside the house at a glance. She climbed up, her eyes always fixed on Ashinaju, as if she was thinking about the credibility of his words. The next moment, Zimiao suddenly got off the bed, pushed Ashinaju away, and ran out. The wine glass fell to the ground and the wine was scattered all over the floor. Zimiao rushed out of the house, but the sight that caught her eyes made her stop. There were guards all around, and when they saw her coming out, they all looked over. Zimiao turned to look at Ashinaju, blinked her eyes, and realized the meaning of Ashinaju's words just now. She could leave the house, but it was impossible to leave here. "What is your purpose?" Knowing that there was no hope of leaving, Zimiao took a deep breath and stepped into the house again. She dared to cooperate with the second prince to poison Yu Hualin, so she was naturally very courageous. It's just that she cherishes her life. Before her enemy dies, she must live. Since Ashinaju didn't kill her, he must have other motives. Ashinaju was not surprised when she turned back. He raised his hand and pointed to the chair opposite, and then sat down first. Zimiao hesitated for a while, then slowly sat down in his seat. She glanced at Ashinaju for a few times, then turned her head away. Ashinayang has been captured by Xiao Shenjiao. Am I of any use to you? If you are useless, why should I look for you? Ashinaju poured out another glass of wine and pushed it in front of Zimiao. If you want to kill the enemy with your own hands, I will still give it to you. But the people need a catharsis. What do you think of the object? Zimiao felt her breathing stagnant for a moment. She pursed her dry lips and asked, "Is that your biological father? Ashina Yang dares to harm him, what can I not dare to do?" Ashinaju's expression was calm, as if he was discussing food and drink. Such Ashina's tactics made Zimiao feel even more foolish. How could she think that such a person is a waste? I'm afraid that the entire Turks were deceived by him. What do you want me to do? Business as usual. Zimiao thought Ashinaju wanted her to attack Yu Hualin directly, but when she heard this, she was stunned. She looked at Ashinaju with confusion in her eyes. If you think you can kill Yu Hualin directly, I don't mind. Ashinaju shrugged, but he knew very well that even if Yu Hualin liked Zimiao now, he would not let down his guard against her. I have to say that his younger brother still thought of a good idea. Starting from the basic necessities of life, including food, clothing, housing, and transportation, and finding a beauty like Zimiao, no matter how vigilant Yu Hualin is, he cannot be perfect in these places. Zimiao smiled awkwardly. If she could really kill Yu Hualin directly, why would she need to poison him? She stood up. I understand. This time, Zimiao stepped out of the house again, and the guards did not look at her anymore, and even made way for her to leave. The news came that Yu Hualin was leading the army. In the camp, everyone's expressions were a little solemn. Yu Hualin is highly skilled and has an extremely elite army under his command. They were able to catch Ashina Yang because the opponent underestimated the enemy and fell into a trap. But facing Yu Hualin, none of them dared to say that they could beat him. Even though Sun Malayang had been stationed in the northwest for many years, he still did not dare to confront Yu Hualin. Your Majesty, I am willing to give it a try. Suye stepped forward with his fists clasped and asked for help. Sun Malayang's eyes flashed with worry. General Su, are your injuries healed? Xiao Shenjiao asked. It's gotten much better. Suye's expression remained unchanged and he returned. Xiao Shenjiao glanced sideways at Black Eagle. The latter received the signal, stepped forward and stood in front of Suye, stretched out his hand and patted her chest. Suye snorted and almost lost his breath. Even though he was protected by a goggle, the arrow still pierced his chest. Where is it so easy to be good? General Sun, General Zhao, you two lead troops to fight, do you dare? Sun Malayang and Zhao Yuanhong came out together. The last general takes orders. End of this chapter. The legitimate daughter returns, the real daughter is reborn. Author, past and present. Chapter 202. Chapter 202 Forced Marriage. Kaya Huaziazu. Is Li Rui stupid? Sulayun paused slightly as he turned the page and looked at Sun Wen, who was standing to one side. When Sun Wen nodded, the surprise in Sulayun's heart faded away. How can such a good person become so stupid? When did this happen? Sulayun asked. Sun Wen replied, it seems that it was the day when a thief broke into the Li family's villa. Hearing this, Sulayun blinked subconsciously. It was not the day she was arrested when there was a thief in the village. As for the thief, he was just the man in black who tied her up. Logically speaking, something should not happen to Li Rui again. Did he do anything else? Sulayun's thoughts were surging in his heart, but he didn't show it on his face. The Li family did a good job of hiding the news, but it's better for everyone to know about such an important matter. She already has an idea. Take this opportunity to pair Su Weiner and Li Rui together. The news that Li's eldest son was stupid spread overnight. Mrs. Li was so angry that she fainted at the house, and Li Minmin also smashed all the decorations in the house. Li's house was in a state of panic. At this moment, a wandering Taoist priest came. "Mr. Li, I do have a way to solve your family's problems." "Taoist priest, please tell me, what should I do?" Father Li tugged at the Taoist priest's clothes anxiously. He still kept the matter of inviting the Taoist priest a secret from others. After all, Li Laohanlin never believed in this. But what happened to Li Rui recently made Li's father panic. He was worried that something dirty might be entangled in their family, especially since he was just a son. If something really went wrong, where would he go to cry? Taoist Master Wu Wei gently pulled off Father Li's hand and said, "Master Li, calm down. Since Taoists said there is a way, there must be a way. You don't have to worry." "Well." Mr. Li retracted his hand angrily and followed Wu Wei cautiously, for fear of losing this life-saving straw. He led Wu Wei into Li's house and walked all the way to Li Rui's yard. Along the way, Taoist Wu Wei's face became darker and darker, which frightened Mr. Li so much that he did not dare to move. Finally arrived at Li Rui's yard. Taoist Wu Wei waved his sleeves and looked directly at the house where Li Rui lived. Red and black intersect, the young master has committed a peach blossom debt. Peach blossom debt. Mr. Li opened his mouth, dazed and confused. Taoist Wu Wei counted his fingers and asked, "Master Ling, is he engaged?" "Exactly. That girl is a child of the Su Hao family," Taoist Wu Wei said and slowly shook his head. "What a bad fate." Mr. Li's expression changed drastically. "Taoist priest, what do you mean, that the marriage is not good?" "It's not that the marriage is bad, it's that it can't be postponed any longer." "Ah." Mr. Li understood what Taoist Wu Wei said, but now he was even more puzzled. He has never heard of anything that could harm someone without getting married. "I advise you, Mr. Li, to make preparations as soon as possible. It is best to implement the marriage within 7 days. The later it is, the more severe the backlash will be on your son." Taoist Wu Wei's tone was heavy, and Master Li became more and more nervous. "Don't worry, Taoist priest, I'll prepare for this right away, but after we get married, will my son be fine?" "No." Taoist Wu Wei waved his hand. "Young Master Ling's stupidity still needs some medicinal materials to cure him." "What is it?" Mr. Li asked cautiously. Taoist Wu Wei grinned. "This medicinal material is exactly the hair of Mr. Ling's future child." Mr. Li felt his breathing was stagnant, and when he rolled his eyes, he almost lost his breath. "Doesn't this mean that it will take at least 10 months for Li Rui to recover from his stupidity? Not to mention, who knows when the woman will become pregnant? But now there is a way. Even if it takes 10 months or more, Mr. Li can only bite the bullet and wait. Anyway, we can't catch up with the spring this time." Mr. Li and Mrs. Li put it all together and quickly asked the servants in the house to get ready. The two of them also went to Su Hao mansion with the betrothal gift. The servant did not report clearly, so when Mrs. Su came to the main hall and saw the boxes of betrothal gifts, her face turned pale. "Mrs. Su." When Mr. Li saw Mrs. Su, his eyes lit up and he quickly stepped forward. Mrs. Li also had a smile on her face. "Mrs. Su, please excuse me. This is what you are doing." Mrs. Su took a quick look and pretended not to understand. Mr. Li hurriedly said, "Mrs. Su, my wife, and I are here to propose marriage to Wan'er on behalf of our child Li Rui. Does your Majesty know about this matter? You also know that a lot of things have happened in the Li family recently. My mother was so worried that she didn't even get a good rest, so she collapsed from exhaustion. Where is Wan'er? Why didn't she come?" Mr. Li looked around as he spoke, completely unaware of Mrs. Su's ugly expression. Mrs. Li, however, still looked at her and asked her husband, "Mrs. Su, what's wrong with you? At this moment, Mr. Lee's eyes fell on Mrs. Su's face. At first glance, I realized that it was indeed a bit ugly. But it doesn't look like you're feeling unwell, more like you're feeling unwell? I'm fine, I just have a few words to say. Now that you two are here, I can talk about it? Mrs. Su sat down and pointed to the two empty seats to indicate to Mr. Lee and Mrs. Lee. The two looked at each other, looking a little nervous. Is the thing about Lee Rui's stupidity true? Mr. Lee looked at his wife beside him and smiled awkwardly. After all, we can't hide this matter from Mrs. Su. It has spread to people outside, but you are so powerful. Why do you still hide such a big thing from us? Do you think Wanner is easy to bully, and by the time she marries Lee Rui, this matter will be over? Mrs. Su said and gave the crutch a heavy blow. A dull voice sounded, and Mr. Lee and Mrs. Lee shook their heads quickly. Mrs. Su, we don't mean this. Then you are here now to force a marriage. Mrs. Su ignored her and asked aggressively. Forced marriage? Why do I remember that this marriage was decided early on? Now it's just a completion of the engagement. How come it has become a forced marriage in your mouth? Mrs. Lee's voice suddenly sounded, which made everyone in the hall stunned. Then several people looked outside and saw Lee Min supporting Mrs. Lee into the main hall. Mother! Mother-in-law! Mr. Lee and Mrs. Lee hurriedly stood up and stepped forward. Mrs. Lee waved her hands impatiently. You two are not so active on weekdays, but you became more active when Rui had an accident. If Min didn't know about this and come to tell me, do you two really think you can succeed if you come here today? Mrs. Su pursed her lips tightly. Mrs. Lee's words just now had already caused a rift between the two families. Second, these two children are ignorant, so don't take it to heart. Mrs. Lee stepped forward and sat down next to Mrs. Su. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The legitimate daughter returns, the real daughter is reborn. Author, past and present. Chapter 203. Chapter 203 Lee Rui came running. Sakin is Mrs. Su's maiden name, but no one has dared to call her that for a long time. But now it was Mrs. Lee who was in front of her. She had a royal decree, and even Mrs. Su did not dare to say anything. Mrs. Su forced a smile and said, Sister, you are right. Why should I care? Why don't you call Wanner? She is the one who is getting married. Mrs. Lee did not take Mrs. Su's words and looked cold. Hurry up and invite the lady over. Yes. The servants ran out quickly. Mrs. Su looked at Mrs. Lee and asked, Sister, are you feeling well? It's good, otherwise I wouldn't be able to come today. Mrs. Lee glanced at Mr. Lee and Mrs. Lee who were still standing there and coughed lightly. Are you two still waiting for someone to ask you to sit down? Mr. Lee and Mrs. Lee hurriedly sat down on the edge as if they were waking up from a dream. For a while, the main hall became quiet. Until Su Wainer arrived. Her face turned a little pale, and when she saw Mrs. Lee and others, her eyes flickered. Su Wainer stepped forward and greeted several people one by one. Wanner is late, please don't blame me, elders. Mrs. Lee responded coldly, Wanner, since you are here, I will pretend to be an elder, lower my face and ask you, do you want to get married or not? Mrs. Lee, what happened, why do you ask so suddenly? Su Wainer pursed her lips, as if she really didn't know anything. But in fact, she already knew the reason why Mrs. Lee and others came, but she hadn't thought of how to refuse, so she could only respond vaguely. Sister Wanner, Min begs you, please save your brother and marry him. Lee Min suddenly stepped forward and grabbed Su Wainer's sleeve. Her tone was sincere and her eyes were filled with tears. This expression moved everyone present. Mrs. Lee's eyes turned red when she thought of her stupid son. She is such a son. Wan'er, please help Rui'er, as long as you marry him, he will be fine. Mrs. Lee also said. Suwainer subconsciously took a step back, then quickly reacted, biting her lower lip and asked, Min, Mrs. Lee, what is going on? If I marry brother Rui, he will be fine? How is this possible? If it's impossible, is it possible that you won't get married? Mrs. Lee stared at Suwainer with sharp eyes and her tone was full of chill. Mrs. Lee saw Suwainer step back just now, and she realized that Suwainer might not be willing to marry Li Rui at all. This can also explain why Suwainer always shirks it so many times before. But this time, she would not give Suwainer a chance to refuse. Waner, this marriage was decided early in the morning. I thought that Rui'er would attend the spring festival, so I thought it would be later. But now that you know Rui'er's situation, it's better to get the wedding done earlier. Mrs. Lee. Under Mrs. Lee's aura, Suwainer was speechless. Or are you saying that the Su family wants to regret their marriage because something happened to Rui'er? Sister, what you said is so unpleasant. When Mrs. Su heard this, she naturally had to speak. How can you regret your marriage to the Lee family so casually? Since I don't regret the marriage, I should have done it earlier. Mrs. Lee looked at Mrs. Su with a smile on her face. Mrs. Su and Suwainer had only these two choices before them. No matter which one they chose, they would not be happy. The atmosphere became silent again. At this time, both Mr. Lee and Mrs. Lee, who were as slow as each other, understood. Co-author Su Manchin wants to tie up the Lee family, but is unwilling to marry someone over. Actually, Mrs. Su opened her mouth to say something, when she caught a glimpse of a figure from the corner of her eye. Her mouth paused. Suleun walked into the main hall, followed by Quiliu and Liangzin. Noticing the atmosphere in the hall, Suleun raised the corner of his mouth slightly and asked curiously, I heard that the Li family came to propose marriage, which is a happy event. Why do everyone look so unhappy? Girl Yun, what are you doing here? Mrs. Su swallowed what she just wanted to say and asked. Suleun stepped forward and said, Grandma, this is the first time Yuner has ever seen a marriage proposal, so she came to see her. What's more, the person being proposed is Sister Waner, so Yuner wants to be happy. The word joyful fell into Suwainer's ears, like a harsh laugh. She raised her head and her eyes fell directly on Suleun. Facing Suleun's smiling eyes, Suwainer's heart tightened, and she said out of nowhere, Sister Yuner, are you here to feel happy, or do you have other ideas? Sister Waner, what do you say? The smile on Suleun's face got a little wider. Sister Yuner, didn't you say you like brother Rui? Suwaner was still a little unsure when she first spoke, but after finishing the sentence, her eyes were full of determination. Suleun saw this change in expression and almost applauded Suwaner. Unfortunately, Suwaner took this step a little late. At this moment, there was a commotion outside the house. The housekeeper of the Su mansion hurriedly ran in, Old Madam, Mr. Li Rui is outside. Elder brother. Rui'er. Li Minmin took the lead and ran out in a few seconds. Everyone in the main hall could not sit still. Mrs. Su, supported by Aunt Zhao, also hurriedly caught up. Only Suleun slowly followed behind everyone. After leaving the gate of Su mansion, many people were already gathered outside. Point to the middle. Elder brother. Li Minmin pushed away the crowd and saw the disheveled Li Rui in the crowd. There were many letters scattered around him. The servants of the Su mansion blocked the crowd and tried to help Li Rui up, but he didn't know where the strength came from and struggled to keep people away. They could only vaguely hear the whispers in his mouth when they got closer. Suwainer looked at Li Rui like this and wanted to turn around and go back. I also felt angry in my heart. What on earth is going on with the Li family? He came to propose marriage again, and to release Li Rui again. They did it on purpose, right? Rui I am my grandmother. Mrs. Li slowly approached Li Rui. As soon as she took a step closer, Li Rui forced her back with all his teeth and claws. Li Minmin supported Mrs. Li, tears welling up in her eyes again. Brother, why are you here? Are you here to see Sister Wan'er? As soon as the word Wan'er came out of his mouth, Li Rui suddenly raised his head and stared at Li Minmin. He also muttered, Su Wan'er. Obviously, he really came to see Su Wan'er. A voice suddenly rang out from the crowd, Master Li is too infatuated, isn't he? People are so stupid that they still miss Miss Su. For a time, everyone also joined in. That's right, it seems that these two people have a really good relationship. Why are the Li family members here? Could it be that they are here to propose marriage? I heard that a Taoist priest went to the Li family and said that getting married early would cure Mr. Li's stupidity. End of this chapter. The legitimate daughter returns, the real daughter is reborn. Author, past and present. Chapter 204. Chapter 204. The wedding is in 5 days. Those comments were completely undisguised, and they floated into everyone's ears one sentence at a time. Mrs. Su felt that she had grasped the handle and looked at the Li family members in surprise. Old sister, you actually came to propose marriage after listening to the Taoist priest. Mrs. Li looked sideways, but did not answer. Li Minmin let go of her hand and walked directly to Su Wan'er. Sister Wan'er, please let your brother enter the house first. Don't let him stay outside. Minmin, I don't want to, but with your brother's current appearance, can I get close to him? Sister Wan'er, you haven't tried it yet. Li Minmin didn't know where she got the strength to pull Su Wan'er over, and walked directly in the direction of Li Rui. Minmin, don't do this. Su Wan'er panicked, but after all, considering the looks in the eyes of so many people in front of her, she didn't dare to struggle too fiercely. Mrs. Su signaled her servants to step forward to stop them, but those servants were stopped by the people brought by Mrs. Li. Suchin, none of us can get close to Rui. Let Wan'er try. We can't let Rui stay at the door all the time, right? What the old sister said, makes sense. Mrs. Su watched the movement over there closely. Su Wan'er knew that Mrs. Su had no idea in front of so many people, so she had to calm down and said, Minmin, let's slow down. Seeing Su Wan'er's cooperation, Li Minmin's hand movements became a little lighter. As he got closer, Li Rui didn't react. Su Wan'er's heart gradually relaxed, but before anyone could stand firm, her feet tightened. She looked down and suppressed the scream that was about to come out. I saw Li Rui grabbing her calf with one hand. Fortunately, he was sitting on the ground at this time. Although he was grabbing her calf, he couldn't use any strength for the moment. Su Wan'er wanted to quietly free her legs, but she felt that Li Rui was a little stronger. He even supported Su Wan'er and slowly stood up. Rui, brother Rui. Seeing Li Rui standing up, Su Wan'er subconsciously smiled. But when he saw her little face, Li Rui's expression changed drastically, and his expression became ferocious. 2 words came out of his mouth, B*tch, person. The words are pronounced clearly and forcefully, making people wonder whether he is stupid or okay. Suleun stood not far away, his eyes flickering. She asked Lu Feng to bring Li Rui out, thinking that she could use this to facilitate the marriage between Su Wan'er and Li Rui. Why does it seem strange when you look at it like this? Even if he was stupid, Li Rui shouldn't have cursed Su Wan'er like this. Those present did not expect Li Rui to say these 2 words, so they all fell silent. Why don't you let Mr. Li in quickly? Mama Zhao hurriedly shouted. Mrs. Su's complexion was already ashen, and she couldn't even speak. This time, when the servants went to help Li Rui, he no longer resisted, but kept his eyes fixed on Su Wan'er, not letting her leave his sight at all. The letters on the ground were also picked up by the servants. But some sharp-eyed people saw it and shouted, "That seems to be a love letter between Miss Su and Mr. Li, right?" The sound was blocked outside the house. In the Su mansion, Li Rui was helped to sit on the seat, and Su Weiner was forced to sit next to him. "Sister, Li Rui is in front of so many people, listen to what he just said. You have to give us an explanation, right?" Mrs. Su could not hide her anger. Mrs. Li was also surprised by what Li Rui just said, but when she looked over again, the fierceness in Li Rui's eyes had long since faded away, and the words she muttered again became, "Waner." She wondered if Rui was stupid to say such a thing. Therefore, Mrs. Li's face became a little bit ashamed when asked by Mrs. Su, but her tone was still firm. "Rui is stupid now, and what she said is nonsense, but this does not affect the marriage between our two families. Qin, I still have to trouble you to accept the wedding today." "Sister, did you believe what that Taoist priest said?" Mrs. Su mentioned this matter again. Mr. Li and Mrs. Li looked at each other, a little panicked. Mrs. Li never believed in this kind of thing. They were worried that Mrs. Li would say something they didn't agree with. Unexpectedly, Mrs. Li opened her mouth and said, "The doctor showed Rui that his stupidity cannot be cured. But the Taoist priest said that if he could marry Waner and have another child, he would take the child's hair and eat it, then Rui will be fine. Now, we only have this choice. Do you believe it or not?" Mrs. Li didn't answer whether she believed it, but the meaning behind her words was very clear. As long as there was a chance, she would try it even if she didn't believe it. What's more, now, this is the only chance left. Su Waner and Li Rui's marriage was already planned. To be honest, it was Mr. Su who shyly asked General Sun to ask old Li Hanlin to get married. If the Su family wants to regret their marriage now, it will only be the Su family that will be embarrassed. Mrs. Su knew this very well. She raised her eyes and glanced at Suleun, her thoughts racing. Well, since the marriage between Su and Li's family has been decided long ago, it's better to get married as soon as possible. "Grandma!" Su Weiner shouted sharply. But the Li family didn't pay attention to her, and their faces improved. Since Mrs. Su has agreed, this matter will be easy to handle. The wedding is scheduled for 5 days. I'll find someone to settle it. It's a good day. Even when she heard that the wedding was scheduled for 5 days, Mrs. Su's expression did not change at all. She was as calm as if the previous conflict had never happened. The bride price was all kept, and the Li family also left with Li Rui. The main hall was empty. "Grandma!" Su Weiner was about to complain to the old lady when she looked up and saw that Suleun was still there, so she swallowed it back. "Waner, come with Grandma. Girl Yun, if you have nothing to do, go back to the yard." Mrs. Su gave Suleun a cold look, stood up and was supported by Su Weiner, and slowly left the main hall. "Miss, why does the slave look so strange?" On the way back to Kaahwaziazu, Quilio looked confused. Mrs. Su obviously didn't want to agree before, but why did she agree after just one look at her young lady? This change happened so quickly that she felt something was wrong. Suleun smiled and said, "You're a smart girl. Since the old lady doesn't want Su Weiner to marry, why do you think she agreed? Because you don't dare to break off the engagement. That's a reason. Is there any more?" Quilio frowned, but no matter how hard she thought about it, she didn't know what the reason was. On the other hand, Lian Xian looked moved and looked at Suleun in disbelief. "Miss, the old lady doesn't want to let you marry for the eldest lady, right?" "What?" Quilio was stunned. This guess is really surprising. Mrs. Su, why would you do this for the sake of the eldest lady? End of this chapter. The legitimate daughter returns, the real daughter is reborn. Author, past and present. Chapter 205. Chapter 205. They are all children of the Su family. Suleun shrugged. She thought it was a little strange that Mrsu didn't do this. Whether it is true or not, we will know in 5 days. Suleun naturally cannot waste the time he spent in the past few days. On the one hand, she wanted people to spread the news that the Su and Li family were getting married soon. The more people knew about it, the better. On the other hand, she was bored in the study, tinkering with some potions that needed to be used. But before I stayed for half a day, I was shouted out. Miss Lu is here. Suleun wiped the powder on his hands clean and walked to the side hall. Lucine did not sit down in the side hall. The tea brought by the maid was placed on the table, but she was not in the mood to drink it. As soon as he heard the footsteps, Lucine immediately looked up. Seeing it was Suleun, he quickly stepped forward and said, Leun, something happened over there with Chinchiu. Please tell me the matter carefully first. Suleun pulled Lucine to sit down and gave Lian Xian a look. The latter stepped forward and poured another cup of tea for Lucine. After a few sips of tea, Lucine calmed down and said, Lu He actually asked Zhou Mingsheng to take the exam for him. Ignoring the surprise, Suleun waved his hand. Lian Xian and Kui Lu quickly looked around to make sure there were no other maids around. You are talking about taking the exam, don't you mean the spring festival in March? Suleun certainly has the answer in his mind. There is no need to take the exam for him in the academy. What's more, most academies have suspended classes now, allowing students to study at home. Even the Su family's homeschooling classes have been suspended. Where will any exams be arranged? I didn't believe it when Chinchiu told me Lu He is absolutely crazy for doing this. The panic in Lucine's eyes almost overflowed. Fraud in the imperial examination was a serious crime of beheading. For the sake of his own future, Lu He completely ignored his family members. Once found out, all of them will be buried with Liu He. He dares to think about it. Suleun was equally surprised, but you said something happened to Chinchiu. What happened? I went to look for Chinchiu this morning, but found that she was not at home, and the house was in a mess. I really wanted to be disturbed. I went to the stall to look for Zhou Mingsheng, and the people nearby also said that he had not come. The two of them, they're all gone. Lucine took Suleun to the home of Chinchiu and Zhou Mingsheng. As he walked, he said, I suspected that this matter had something to do with Liu He, but I was afraid of disturbing the situation, so I didn't ask him. I don't think he would tell you even if you asked. Suleun frowned. The situation here was a bit complicated. Lu He wanted Zhou Mingsheng to take the exam for him. Zhou Mingsheng could have refused directly. Lu He would not dare to do anything too extreme if he thought about it. Even if he is threatened, Zhou Mingsheng has many ways to avoid hiding it from Chinchiu. After entering the courtyard, Suleun's nose moved slightly and he smelled a slight smell of blood. The smell of blood came from the house. Suleun walked into the house. It was a mess, and it seemed that there had been a fight. Lucine also came in. I searched a lot, but found nothing. As soon as he finished speaking, Suleun took out a seal from a corner. There is a trace of blood on it. This seal is from Kaiming Academy. Lucine recognized the seal. There was one on Liu He's desk. Engraved on it are the 4 characters Kaiming Academy, which was a special New Year gift made by the Academy to the students the year before last. It has no other effect. Zhou Mingsheng came to Kaiming Academy last year. The seal should not belong to him. Will it be from Liu He? Suleun handed the seal to Lucine. Lucine looked at it for a few times and shook his head. Liu He's seal has not been used since he got it, but there are still residues on this seal, so it shouldn't be his. At least I have gained something. This matter should be related to the people from Kaiming Academy. Although only one seal was found, the scope has been narrowed down. Looking further, there is another good news. The year before last, Kaiming Academy produced a total of 30 seals. Except for a few students who did not stay in the capital, there were only 17 people left to investigate. The list is broad. Lu Qin looked at the names above, many of which had disputes with Zhou Mingsheng. Lu He's name was also among them. Although the seal did not look like Lu He's, both Lu Qin and Suleun agreed that this matter was closely related to Lu He. Suleun arranged for people to check the people on the list one by one, and even people from Liu He were sent to follow. After being so busy, the day has passed. At this time, the Su mansion was also busy making preparations. The servants, under the instructions of the steward, posted happy words. Su Weiner left Mrsu's yard with a smile on her face. On the contrary, Su Changqing, who had just returned from Shuntian mansion, came to Mrsu with a droopy face. "Mom, why did you agree to this marriage?" Su Changqing said this when he saw Mrsu. Mrsu's expression did not change, and she said patiently, "Master Marquis, your temper is getting worse and worse. I taught you to be steady before, but how come you have forgotten it now that you are older?" "Mother." Su Changqing cleared her throat, straightened her clothes, and saluted Mrsu respectfully. "If I don't agree to this wedding, the Li family will probably overthrow our Su family. I don't know where the Taoist priest came from to say those nonsense." Mrsu complained. Su Changqing also knew that Mrsu had no choice in this matter, but she couldn't really let Su Weiner get married, right? "Why do you always forget that you have more than one daughter?" Mrsu glanced at Su Changqing and knew what he was thinking. Rain or shine. Su Changqing subconsciously thought of Su Yuking, but quickly realized, "You mean Su Leun. They are all children of the Su family anyway, and that Li Rui is also a fool when the time comes, with the red hijab on his head, who knows who will marry him." Mrsu's tone was cold. She had already remembered the fact that the Li family came to force her to marry her today. When Su Weiner married Prince Yu, she would always make the Li family pay a price. As for Su Leun, she is lucky to be able to marry into the Li family. Can Su Leun be happy? She has to get married even if she doesn't want to. It's not her turn to speak in the Su family. After Mrsu said this, she stared at Su Changqing for a while and asked, "Then Mr. Sun won't come back?" "I went to pick her up in person, but she kept trying to push her away, which is what I'm used to." Su Changqing's face was filled with displeasure when this matter was mentioned. He has lowered his status to pick him up, and Sun Gro still wants to pretend, so he might as well not come back. "Okay, forget it if she doesn't come back, it's not a big deal anyway." Su Changqing did learn about the war in the northwest in advance. Knowing that Su Ye not only survived but also won the battle, he became a little panicked. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The legitimate daughter returns, the real daughter is reborn. Author, past and present. Chapter 206. Chapter 206. Hurry up. After all, when Sun Gro returned to Sun Mansion, they broke up on bad terms. Seeing that Sun Gro did not come back after staying in the Sun Mansion for so long, he was worried whether the other party still remembered this matter. If this affects the relationship between the Su family and the Sun family, he will lose more than he gains. Who would have thought that Su Ye, a kid with such a long life, could still survive? Su Changqing muttered. Mrsu didn't know what she was thinking of, and gave Su Changqing a strange look. "Did Prince Yu tell you that something happened to Su Ye?" "Exactly. How did he confirm that something happened to Su Ye in the capital?" This question stopped Su Changqing. When he first learned about Su Ye's accident, he didn't believe it, but the news spread around the capital the next day, so he couldn't help but not believe it. "But now that I think about it, how did King Yu know it in advance?" Thinking of this, the expression on Su Changqing's face changed. To know about this in advance, Either King Yu had people in the military camp and the news spread quickly, or King Yu also had a hand in what happened to Su Yet. Obviously, the latter is more likely. This King Yu is quite courageous, but he is just seeking skin from a tiger, Lord Marquis. You have to weigh this carefully. Mother, the son knows. Somewhere on the outskirts of Beijing. I said, if you were honest earlier, wouldn't you suffer less? Zhang Yang said as he untied Zhou Mingsheng. The hemp rope was rough, and coupled with Zhou Mingshen's previous struggle, after it was untied, many places where it was tied left scars. Zhou Mingsheng sat up straight. I want to see my wife. Didn't I say that you are fine? Just stay well and we will release you when the spring festival is over. You are really crazy. Zhou Mingsheng stared at the three people around him. These three were once his students, but now they have become his kidnappers. Master Zhou, why are you so anxious? We didn't ask you to take the exam anyway. You. Zhou Mingsheng pointed at the three people in front of him, but he didn't know what to say. Zhang Yang threw the hemp rope aside and said with a smile, but Master Zhou, it would be great if you are willing to take the exam for the students. Don't even think about it. Of course Master Zhou is an upright person, but now that you know about this, we should have killed you and your wife directly, but after all, there is a teacher-student friendship. When the spring festival is over and you leave obediently, Master, we will not investigate it. Looking at the disgusting faces of several people, Zhou Mingsheng took a few breaths. But he can't do anything. Qin Qiu is still in their hands. The three people looked at each other and said openly, don't worry, Master, someone will come to bring you food every day, but don't think about running away. We are all people outside. As for your wife, as long as you cooperate, we will never it will hurt her. After saying that, the three people smiled and turned to leave. The door was locked. Zhou Mingsheng covered his face, helpless. Outside the house. As soon as Zhang Yang locked up, he felt something was wrong in the surrounding atmosphere. Turning around to look, Liu He was standing not far away. Liu He, why are you here? Zhou Mingsheng is inside. Liu He didn't mean to ask, but confirmed it. Zhang Yang curled his lips and said, sure enough, I can't hide anything from you. You are quite brave, Liu He sneered, not too surprised. Did he discover it? I have to blame you for this. I don't even know why you asked Zhou Mingsheng to take the exam for you. Zhang Yang looked helpless. Young masters like them from wealthy families were always required by their parents to get good grades in the imperial examinations, but their brains were not the material for studying. What was there to take the exam for? But if you don't take the exam, your parents will talk about it. If you don't do well in the exam, you will be talked about. Therefore, there is a tacit understanding in the circle. In order to make their grades look better, they will find some poor people with better grades, give them some money, and let people take the exam for them. There is no need to obtain merit or fame in the examination, as long as the ranking is good. This kind of thing is not uncommon. As long as the examiner takes care of it, it will pass by turning a blind eye. Unexpectedly, Liu He would be so ruthless this time and went straight to Zhou Mingsheng. Even Li Laohanlin said that Zhou Mingsheng was the candidate for the #1 scholarship. Liu He chose Zhou Mingsheng instead of Liu He. Isn't that stupid? It's not a loss if he doesn't agree to it, right? Liu He didn't care too much. It's just that he didn't expect Zhou Mingsheng's wife to be so stubborn and actually confront him directly. Even let Zhou Mingsheng and Qin Qiu know that such things were not uncommon. Zhang Yang and others were worried that they would tell anyone, so they planned to tie them up first and wait until spring. Are you really going to let the person go? Liu He raised his eyebrows and asked. Zhang Yang frowned. They were not cruel people, and they would not do it if they really wanted to kill someone. Let's talk about it later. As soon as he finished speaking, many people suddenly appeared around them, surrounding them. The expressions of Zhang Yang and others changed, and even Lu He's face turned cold. Catch them all. Hong Tongwan gave an order, and the guards of Shuntian Mansion stepped forward and captured several people. Why did you arrest us? Zhang Yang shouted. Lu He's face was pale and his eyes were looking straight at something. Sulayun. He moved his mouth and made a very soft sound. Sulayun nodded slightly at him and smiled. To be honest, if Liu He hadn't led the way, it would have taken them a while to find this place. As for the rest of the matter, just leave it to Shuntian Mansion. The marriage of Su and Li's family is also approaching. Su Changqing originally asked someone to invite Sun Jiaro back. After all, the one who got married was considered her daughter, but was rejected by Sun Jiaro. Sun Jiaro indeed had no intention of getting married, but on the other hand, it was also because Sulayun told her not to come back. After all, something else is likely to happen on the wedding day, and Sulayun doesn't want his mother to be embarrassed at the Su family. That day, Sulayun got up early. Sure enough, after a while, I heard Nanny Zhao's anxious voice, "Second miss, something's not right." Liang Xin and Kuliu stopped Granny Zhao at the door. "Mommy, the lady hasn't gotten up yet and you are in such a hurry, what happened? I must tell the second lady about this in person. Please wake up the second lady quickly." Lian Xian looked embarrassed, "But mama, miss, she..." As he said that, the door was opened. Sulayun pretended to have just woken up and rubbed his eyes. "Mother Zhao, what happened?" "Second miss, please quickly go with me to the eldest lady's place." Speaking, Nanny Zhao stretched out her hand to pull Sulayun. Mama Zhang arrived in time and pulled Aunt Zhao away. "If there is something urgent, Aunt Zhao, please let the young lady change her clothes first." Aunt Zhao smiled awkwardly and said, "This, second miss, please hurry up." End of this chapter. The legitimate daughter returns, the real daughter is reborn. Author, past and present. Chapter 207. Chapter 207 Substitute Marriage. Mother Zhang entered the room, and while changing Sulayun's clothes, she said, "Miss, you guessed it right. I came to call you over so early in the morning. I'm afraid it's because of my unkindness. That's why I asked you, Grandma, to rest early yesterday so that you could come with me later," Sulayun said with a smile. Looking at her smiling face, Grandma Zhang shook her head helplessly. It didn't take much time to change clothes and make up, but after Sulayun and Grandma Zhang did this, they were not in a hurry to go out. The door of the house was closed, and Aunt Zhao didn't know what was going on inside. Seeing the sun rising a little bit, Nanny Zhao said anxiously, "Second miss, are you okay?" "Mother Zhao, please wait a moment," Sulayun replied leisurely. Seeing that Aunt Zhao couldn't wait any longer, she stood up and opened the door and went out. Seeing Sulayun dressed up, Aunt Zhao said patiently, "Second miss, let's get there quickly." Mama Zhao walked in front, Sulayun followed behind, walking at a leisurely pace. When Aunt Zhao felt that something was not right, she looked back and saw that Sulayun had fallen a long distance away. "Second miss, please hurry up," Mother Zhao urged. Sulayun responded, but his movements were not very fast. But Aunt Zhao didn't dare to say more, because it would be terrible if the second lady didn't go. Liang Xin and Kuliu looked at each other and smiled secretly. This is the first time they have seen Aunt Zhao like this. Aunt Zhang coughed lightly, reminding the two of them to restrain themselves. It was quite quiet all the way to the peony garden. Sulayun knew it well, but still looked confused. "Sister Warner hasn't gotten up yet? Isn't it almost Chen time?" "Miss, she, sigh." Mama Zhao led Sulayun into the house, sighing constantly. As soon as Sulayun opened the door, he smelled the smell of medicine. "This is quite a pretense." Sulayun's eyes flashed with a smile. "What's going on? Wasn't it fine yesterday?" Last night, the eldest lady said she was feeling unwell. We thought it wouldn't be a big deal, but this morning, we found that the eldest lady had already started to have a fever. She was in a daze and couldn't even stand up, let alone attending a wedding. Ah, Sulayun looked surprised. What should I do? Have you seen a doctor? I've looked at it and said there's nothing I can do. That's it, then, Aunt Zhao, just come to me. The old lady is busy in the front hall now. I asked the old slave to find the second young lady to take my place first. Mama Zhao was reading, but before she could finish speaking, she was stunned. What did the second lady just say? She raised her eyes and saw Sulayun open the curtain and sat down next to Suwanur. Subsequently, Sulayun put his hand on Suwanur's wrist. That posture seemed to be to check Suwanur's pulse. Second miss, what are you doing? Aunt Zhao stepped forward in a panic, her heart pounding. Does the second young lady know medical skills? Don't worry, Mama, I'll show it to Sister Wanner first. Sulayun shushed and saw Suwanner's closed eyelids move slightly. Of course she didn't see it and continued to feel Suwanner's pulse. The pulse is a few points faster. I think Suwanner is nervous. Second miss, please stop joking. How can you feel your pulse? Aunt Zhao wanted to pull Sulayun away, but before she could stretch out her hand, Sulayun had already retracted her hand. Just for a moment, Aunt Zhao felt that Sulayun was just pretending to be mysterious. But the next moment, Sulayun took out a purse from his waist. There were a few silver needles dazzling inside. Second young lady, stop making trouble. The most important thing now is that you have to help the eldest lady get on the sedan chair. Mama Zhao's tone was a little more serious. Sulayun paused in his movements and slowly looked at Aunt Zhao. Auntie, what are you talking about? Second young lady, the eldest lady is like this. How do you think she can get into the sedan chair? You have to help the eldest lady. But how can I help? If I get on the sedan chair, what kind of decency would it be? Sulayun asked. Second young lady, you don't have to worry about this now. Anyway, the eldest lady should be better in the evening. We will replace you and the eldest lady. You don't want to see the Su family embarrassed, right? Mama Zhao's tone was a little serious. Sulayun hesitated for a moment and asked, if Sister Wanner is well now, does she not need my help? Second young lady, that's what I mean, but you also see that the eldest young lady can't be cured instantly. Of course. Sulayun smiled at Nanny Zhao, and then simply pierced Suwanner's arm with the silver needle in her hand. Suwanner's hands moved subconsciously and her eyelids twitched. But she still had the patience to endure it. Second young lady, please don't continue. What will you do if you hurt the eldest lady? As soon as Aunt Zhao finished speaking, Sulayun struck another blow at Suwanner. As soon as this injection went in, Suwanner felt her whole body getting hot. His back felt like it was being burned on fire. Suwanner couldn't bear it anymore and sat up suddenly. Sister Wanner, how do you feel? Sulayun. Suwanner met Sulayun's smiling eyes and immediately realized that Sulayun was basically teasing her. You really know how to heal. Only a little bit. Sulayun stood up, rubbed his wrists, and his tone was no longer as calm as before. Since Sister Wanner is well, get up quickly. The Li family will be here to pick you up soon. Suwanner winked at the maids beside her. Before Aunt Zhao could stop her, several maids rushed up to catch Sulayun. Before Karen could get close to Sulayun, he was blocked by green willows one by one. Miss, what are you going to do? Mother Zhang stared at Suwanner with a gloomy face. But Suwanner's expression was even uglier than that of Granny Zhang. Sulayun, don't you like Li Rui? Shouldn't you be happy if I give him to you? Suwanner, it seems you haven't injected enough needles yet. Sulayun laughed out loud, even with tears in her eyes. She approached Suwanner and said, I'll say it again, a person like Li Rui is not even worthy of carrying my shoes. You'd better keep it. This marriage is yours. You said it wrong again. Sulayun's eyes turned cold. I don't want this marriage. After saying that, Sulayun turned around and left the house, but Aunt Zhao and others did not dare to stop him. Mama Zhao quickly asked someone to inform Mrsu in the front hall of the matter. The only thing they didn't count was that Sulayun actually knew medical skills. So much so that Suwaner just received 2 injections and couldn't continue acting. Sulayun was walking on the road, pretending to be sick and asking her to get into the sedan chair for her. This idea was a bit weak, and I guess Mrsu would have some other tricks up her sleeve. But Sulayun had already thought of a solution. End of this chapter. The legitimate daughter returns, the real daughter is reborn. Author, past and present. Chapter 208. Chapter 208. Second aunt's sister. Arrived at the front hall, Mrsu was greeting the guests. Grandmother. Hearing Sulayun's voice, Mrsu's face turned gloomy for a moment, but it soon faded away. She turned to look at Sulayun, who was smiling. That smile was a bit dazzling no matter how you looked at it. Girl Yun, why are you here? Mrsu asked in a gentle tone in front of the guests. Sulayun leaned against Mrsu's side. Sister Waner asked me to stay with you today to take care of you. She was worried that you would be sad when you saw her getting married, and it would be bad for your health. As you said, it's such a happy event like getting married, why would Grandma be sad? Mrsu smiled, hoping that Sulayun would not have to follow her. But Sulayun was one step ahead of her and actually greeted the guests and entertained them in a decent manner. After a while, the sound of gongs and drums came closer. I think it's the Li family who came to pick me up. Girl Yun, go and see if your sister is okay. Mrsu said to Sulayun. Sulayun nodded, turned to Quilayu and said, Quilayu, walk quickly. Go over and say that the groom is here. Yes, miss. Quilayu smiled and ran quickly towards the peony garden. The sound at the door has become louder and louder. Sulayun walked to the door and looked outside. Although they had only been preparing for 5 days, the Li family still tried their best. The sedan chair that came just looked extremely gorgeous. What's interesting is that Li Rui was not riding on a horse, but was leading a horse, and there were 2 boys accompanying him. It seems that the Li family is worried that Li Rui is acting erratically on the horse, and it will be bad if something goes wrong. Seeing this scene, Sulayun couldn't help but think of how she looked when she got married in her previous life. The Li family didn't like her, and Li Rui hated her so much that he didn't even come to get married. They just sent a few shabby servants to pick her up. At that time, she thought that if she worked harder, she could change Li Rui's mind. But when she was about to die, she suddenly realized that instead of relying on others to love herself, why couldn't she love herself? Comparing the present life with his previous life, Sulayun no longer feels any sense of disparity. The only thing she is curious about now is that since Suwaner married Li Rui, will Prince Yu still want her? The bride is here. The bride, who was wearing a red hijab, was welcomed by the maids. When I walked past Sulayun, a scent of fragrance wafted over me. Sulayun stared at the bride's somewhat frivolous footsteps for a while, frowning slightly. This person is not Suwaner. She waved to Lian Xian, and then whispered something in Lian Xian's ear. Miss, I'll do it right away. Lian Xian nodded and left quickly. The bride got on the sedan chair, and Li Rui also led the horse and walked towards Li's house. The sound of gongs and drums along the way attracted the attention of many people. Sulayun and Mrsu sat in a carriage and followed behind. In about 2/4 of an hour, we arrived at Li's mansion. There were already people standing outside the door of the mansion. As soon as Sulayun got off the carriage, he saw Lai Yufeng standing in the crowd. Seeing that the bride was about to be led across the threshold, the stone in Lai Yufeng's hand flew out in the blink of an eye. Hit the bride's red hijab directly. That force lifted most of the red hijab, and the bride's face was also exposed. The next moment, Li Rui's expression changed drastically and he pushed the person away violently. Ah! The bride, who fell to the ground, covered her face in panic, but to no avail. That's not Sister Wanner. Suleun was panicked. Mrsu wanted to rush up and gag Suleun, but it was too late. A wedding turned out to be a joke. But the Li family didn't know what was wrong with them. Even if they suffered such a big loss, they still wanted Li Rui to marry Suwainer. Suwainer was sent to the Li family after all, but when she came to worship, her face was terrifyingly gloomy. When the guests saw this, they did not dare to stay any longer and left without taking a few sips of wine. As for the substitute bride, it was only said that she was obsessed with Suwainer and wanted to marry Li Rui. It's hard to say who will believe it. Sun Mansion. Qin Zian talked to Sun Gro about yesterday's farce in Li's house, and the smile on her lips never softened. Mom, second aunt, what are you talking about? You are so happy. Suleun walked in and joked. Qin Zian saw her and waved. Li Yun, I was telling your mother about what happened to the Li family yesterday. You were there at the time, did you see it? Of course I saw it. Suleun smiled but didn't say much. A maid stepped forward and handed over the invitation card in her hand. Second madam, the Wen family has returned the invitation card. Why did you return it, but did you tell me the reason? Qin Zian stopped laughing and was a little confused. The maid shook her head and said, the Wen family didn't say anything. And, who are the Wen family you are talking about? Suleun was slightly startled when he heard the word Wen. Is it Qiang Shuang's child's husband's family? Sun Gro thought about it. Then Mr. Wen is working as an editor in the Hanlin Academy now, right? Well, it's Qiang Shuang's husband's family. I went home for a visit and found out that Qiang Shuang was pregnant for several months, so I thought about going to have a look. Why didn't you accept the invitation? Suleun's face turned cold. How could she forget about this matter? Qin Qiang Shuang is Qin Zian's half-sister, but Qin Qiang Shuang's mother died not long after giving birth to her. Qin Zian was many years older than Qin Qiang Shuang, so she took care of Qin Qiang Shuang, not like a sister but like a mother. Later, Qin Zian married Sun Malayang, and Qin Qiang Shuang cried loudly at the wedding banquet, insisting that Sun Malayang return her sister to her. Just in the previous life, Qin Qiang Shuang died prematurely due to premature birth before Qin Zian came back from the northwest. Second aunt, why don't I accompany you to Wen's house to check on the situation? After Qin Qiang Shuang's death, her husband married a new man within a few days. Suleun absolutely does not believe that there is nothing fishy in this. This Qin Qiang Shuang is the second aunt's sister. If she can help, she will naturally help. That's fine too. Qin Zian nodded. Unexpectedly, when the group arrived at the gate, they were stopped by the boy. Reporting to second Madam Sun, Miss Su, my eldest mistress saw Hong this morning, and the house is in chaos right now. I'm afraid the reception will not be adequate. Please go back first, and our madam will come to the door in person to make amends another day. After hearing this, how could Suleun and Qin Zian be willing to leave? Qin Zian didn't even know that Qin Qiang Shuang gave birth so early. Suleun looked solemn and said, it's okay. I came here today just to see your eldest grandma. Since I know that she will give birth, I should feel happy before I leave. Speaking, he walked towards the house. The young man was so angry that he didn't dare to stop her. He just chased her and said, Miss Su hasn't left the government yet, so it's hard to get involved in such things. Why don't you wait until our eldest grandma is well, and you can come and have a wedding banquet when the child is 1 month old? Fuck you. What did Our Lady do that we need a servant to say something about? Kualai was an outspoken person. Hearing what the young man said was unpleasant, he spat back. The boy apologized, I said the wrong thing, but I was also thinking about Miss Su's reputation. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The legitimate daughter returns, the real daughter is reborn. Author, past and present. Chapter 209. Chapter 209, Overestimating One's Own Abilities. Oh, I have met MRS Sun's second wife, Miss Sue. A woman hurriedly ran over. When she saw the people, she knelt down in front of them, blocking their way. When he saw the person coming, the boy immediately breathed a sigh of relief, raised his sleeves and quietly wiped the sweat from his forehead. Suleun's expression changed. The old woman lowered her head and didn't see it. She just said, "The slave is with the madam. My husband's surname is Wang. People call me MRS Wang." Our madam was worried that the servants on the door could not speak, so she bumped into a few nobles and specially sent the slave. "Come and greet the young lady. It's just that grandma suddenly started to act today. The situation is not good and she is distracted. I can only ask you to go back first, and then I will come to apologize in person." The young man has already explained this. MRS Sun is the sister of your eldest grandma. Now that she is not doing well, how can MRS Sun not be here? Quiliu said with a cold face. "Of course I have to wait for your eldest grandma. We can go back only after grandma gives birth safely." MRS Wang's heart skipped a beat and she quickly apologized. "Second, MRS Sun and Miss So care about grandma. This is a good thing. But you don't know that the mouths of those people outside are like knives. What you know is that these two noble people have kind hearts. No, those who know better think that our Wen family doesn't know etiquette and wants to arrange things for us. Please, miss, give us a way to survive, and don't let our grandma bear this crime." He stopped them again and refused to let them in. Suleun didn't believe it if he said there was nothing fishy. Qin Xian's face became even colder. "If you, madam, are worried about this, you can just take it to heart. Qian Shuang is my sister, and her child is naturally my nephew. She gave birth successfully today. As my sister and aunt, I naturally rushed to tell everyone and prepare generous gifts. When others know about it, they will only say a good word. It will only benefit you, the Wen family, and will do no harm." Having said that, but Qin Xian kept Qin Qianshuang in mind, and her patience had long been exhausted. She glared, and her voice could not help but rise a little higher. "You have tried to resist the obstruction several times, but is there anything dirty in it?" MRS Wang was startled and turned away with a guilty conscience. "Look at what MRS Sun said, our house is clean, there is nothing dirty about it." "In that case, why don't you get out of the way quickly?" Quiliu waved her hand, and MRS Wang, who was kneeling upright in the middle of the road, fell to the side. Suleun didn't care about anything else. He grabbed a maid and asked her to lead the way, striding towards the backyard. Mother-in-law Wang broke out in a cold sweat, and everyone disappeared. Only then did she come back to her senses, hurriedly got up, and stumbled to the backyard. "When we arrived at Yongxiaxuan, we heard the noise inside." Stepping into the hanging flower gate, Qin Xian's face changed when he saw that the yard was in chaos and there was no order at all. In this case, a full-term birth can cause trouble, let alone a less-than-month birth. "The medicine is coming, the medicine is coming, get out of the way." A woman was carrying a tray, the wind was blowing under her feet, and she ran past Suleun towards the main house. A strong medicinal smell penetrated into the nose. Suleun frowned and called her, "Wait a moment." The woman was stunned, stopped, and looked her up and down. Seeing that she is not very old, she wears quite a lot of money. Not to mention the jewelry styles that she has never seen before. That seemingly ordinary moon-white dress shines in the sunlight and looks like it is worth a lot of money. It is not something that ordinary girls from small families can afford to wear. Knowing that this was someone he couldn't afford to offend, Su Guan's family took back the harsh words that came to his lips and softened his expression. This is not the place where the young lady should come. Please go to the front hall and wait. Sulayun didn't have time to guess what she was thinking, so he walked up to her, picked up the bowl of soup and smelled it carefully. Is this medicine for your eldest grandma? Exactly. Su Guan's family nodded hurriedly. My eldest grandma will give birth in 8 months. I am afraid that she will lose her vitality, so the doctor specially prescribed this medicine for her to take, which will strengthen the body and strengthen the body. Sulayun shook his head. If you drink this medicine, I'm afraid it will kill 2 people, and even the children and adults will not be able to survive. What? Qin Xian's face changed drastically. But she knew that Sulayun's medical skills were certainly not without purpose. What nonsense are you talking about? This is the medicine prescribed by Dr. Lu, who treats the nobles in the palace. Isn't it better than a little girl like you to understand? Su Guan's face suddenly changed and he took back the medicine bowl. Then he walked back and said, Miss, you should go back home and embroider. You don't understand what's going on here. Sulayun frowned, but Lu Changping, imperial physician Lu. I didn't expect you to have some knowledge. Su Guan's family stopped to look at her and smiled proudly. If my master hadn't saved Dr. Lu once, I wouldn't have invited him here. Sulayun nodded and told Lian Xin, stop the person. This medicine must not be given to Qian Shuang. Immediately, he said to Kuliu, you have good legs and feet. Go quickly and ask for Dr. Wang from Baikatang and Rong Wenpo from Sifang Street. Hurry. Although she has never met Lu Changping, she has heard some stories about him. He is a smooth talker, but he has no real talent and knowledge. He is really a quack. If he could prescribe a prescription for activating blood circulation and removing blood stasis, there would be no one but him. Yes, slave, let's go now, Kuliu responded, stepped on her feet, performed Qinggong and walked out of the yard. Su Guan's family was dumbfounded. He turned around and saw that the medicine bowl in the tray was missing. She suddenly became anxious. Miss, I don't know which house you are from, but you can't rely on your status to delay my grandma's treatment. This is a matter of life and death. The little maids coming and going in the yard saw it, and they all stopped what they were doing and stood there to watch the fun. Su Gunjia's voice was loud, if you do this again, I will report it to my wife and report to the official. What are you yelling about? Don't you know that the patient needs to be quiet? A little medicine boy came out of the house and saw Su Guan's family. He frowned and said, didn't I ask you to boil the medicine? Where is the medicine? Why haven't you done it yet? Send it here? If the condition is delayed, our master and disciple will not take the blame. Su Guan's family hurriedly stepped forward to apologize and said with a smile, the medicine is here, let's send it in now. You can't take that medicine. Sulayun looked at the little medicine boy in front of the door, which coincided with him in the previous life. In his last life, Lu Changping used the wrong medicine and killed someone. He was afraid of going to jail, so he pushed the person out to block the knife, and the young man died. What can't you eat? Do you know who my master is? Chun Sheng was furious after hearing this. There is a narrow chance of death inside, but you would be better off just adding to the chaos. Chun Sheng, what's going on? Lu Changping came out of the room and looked at Sulayun, his face darkened. He heard the conversation in the yard, even in the house. A young girl dared to question his medical skills. She was really overestimating her abilities. End of this chapter. The legitimate daughter returns, the real daughter is reborn. Author, past and present. Chapter 210. Chapter 210. The medicine is not suitable for the disease. Chun Sheng explained the matter in a few words, then turned to Su Gun's family and said, my master is very busy. If you don't need my master to save people anymore, please speak quickly so that we can leave quickly and not be a nuisance here. Oh, you can't leave. If you leave, who will save our eldest grandma and young master? Su Guan's family panicked and quickly advised, Your Majesty, you don't care about the villain's life. Don't follow her. Generally speaking, she is not from our family, so what she says does not count. Qin Qiangshuang's personal maid Qiu Tong came out and saw Qin Zian. She was startled at first, and immediately cried and begged, Miss? Is it you? You are back. Please tell this lady not to stop the imperial doctor from saving the madam. The madam is still here. It's difficult to give birth. Qin Zian held Qiu Tong up and said, Li Yun, she. Yes, she's just a young lady, pretending to be a doctor, so don't delay the doctor's efforts to save people. Seeing as she is not as old as our aunt, even if she has learned some medical skills, so what? Can she be as good as a miracle doctor? Hurry and have tea in the front hall. This is not a place for a girl who has not left the government. The maids and women all over the yard helped to speak and pointed at Sulayun, which was very ugly. Lian Xian was worried that they would be unfavorable to Sulayun, so she quickly pulled her to persuade her in a low voice, Miss, this Dr. Lu is quite famous. It is said that he can bring the dead back to life, so we should be more cautious. Sulayun didn't want to get involved at first, but it turned out to be the sanctimonious quack Dr. Lu Changping who saved people. He also gave Qiangshuang a bowl of blood-activating and blood stasis-removing decoction without saying a word. Not to mention that Qiangshuang is now a month old, and she was born prematurely due to sudden redness, which is inherently risky. If you continue to use such unsystematic and powerful medicine, even a good person will lose half his life, and his qi deficiency will be so severe that he doesn't know how many years or months he will be able to make up for it. No one knows how Qin Qiangshuang died in the previous life. It seems that it was because of drinking this medicine that Qin Qiangshuang did not save his life. She must never let the tragedy of her last life happen again. She took a deep breath and tried to calm down. I'm not talking nonsense. Everyone knows that this medicine for promoting blood circulation and removing blood stasis cannot be given to pregnant women. Why is it that the medicine is prescribed by the imperial doctor today, and you are so convinced of it? Is it possible that he said that eating arsenic will make you immortal, so you all want to eat arsenic? The people present looked at each other and fell silent. Chun's face turned red and his neck was thick with anger. He pointed at Sulayun and cursed, You little hooves, how dare you humiliate my master like this? I won't beat you to death. How outrageous! Lian Xian stood in front of Sulayun with a cold face and glared angrily, My young lady is the legitimate daughter of the Suhao mansion. What is your identity? How dare you speak rudely to her? Chun Sheng turned pale with fright. He was dressed in white, scolded the young lady of the Ho mansion, and threatened to beat her. This was a life-threatening situation. Everyone in the courtyard also lowered their heads in panic, fearing that Sulayun would blame them for their rude words just now. Lu Changping's eyes darkened, he stroked his beard and squinted at Sulayun, MSU's status is indeed valuable, but I have never heard that you have made any achievements in medical skills. As the saying goes, there are mountains in the world, so Miss Su should not do whatever she wants based on her status. After hearing this, everyone came back to their senses and felt that what he said was reasonable. It's not like having a high status means everything you say is right. Sulayun was not annoyed. He looked directly at him and sneered, I will return these words to Imperial Physician Lu. As the saying goes, there is heaven and there are people outside the world. Imperial Physician Lu should not rely on himself as an imperial physician to be able to do it. Use medicine at will and don't treat the patient as a human being. You, Lu Changping's old face turned red after being scolded by her. It took a long while before I managed to squeeze out one sentence, Miss Su really has sharp teeth and a sharp mouth. He held his head high and said in a cold voice, Chun Sheng, since Miss Su is here to take charge, there is no need for our master and apprentice. Go pack your things and let's go back home. Yes, Chun Sheng's confidence returned and he responded quickly. Chiu Tong came back to her senses and hurriedly stepped forward to say good things. Mr. Lu, this is absolutely impossible. Our grandma still needs you to save her life. Lu Changping ignored her. She stamped her feet and saw that Chun Sheng had indeed packed up her things and came out. She quickly knelt down and begged Suleun, Miss Su, I beg you, please go. Our wife and the child in her belly can't afford to suffer. Please feel sorry for me. Feel sorry for her. Suleun's mouth moved slightly, feeling very sad. These people won't believe anything she says now. But she couldn't let Lu Changping, a quack, harm Qiang Shuang. It's really a dilemma. Qin Zian stood by Suleun, Leun, and believes in you. Chiu Tong, we have sent someone to ask for a miracle doctor. Even if you don't believe Miss Su, you should believe me, right? Miss Chiu Tong looked at Qin Zian blankly. She had been with Qin Qiang Shuang since she was a child. Of course she knew how good Qin Zian was to Qin Qiang Shuang, but madam can't delay her. Seeing that her young lady was wrongly accused, Lian Xian felt very distressed. She understands pharmacology, so she naturally knows that this bowl of medicine must never be given to Mrs. Wen, but these people who don't understand pharmacology don't know. Now she only hopes that Kualai will bring Dr. Wang and Rong Wenpo over quickly to speak for her young lady. Miss, I've invited Dr. Wang and Po Rong Wen here. Suleun was overjoyed. Let the two of you go in and show Qiang Shuang. Lu Changping's face was even more ugly. That miracle Dr. Wang does have some reputation among the people, but how can he compare with himself? This Suleun was clearly slapping him in the face. It is not easy for a family like the Wen family to see an imperial doctor, but Dr. Wang is very familiar with it. They know that he has superb medical skills, dares to steal people from the hands of the King of Hell, and is very popular among the people. After seeing him, Chiu Tong felt a little more at ease, and asked Su Gun's family to bring the medicine bowl to Dr. Wang. Miracle doctor, please see if this medicine can be given to my wife. There are different opinions, but I don't think so. It's better to know who to listen to. Divine Dr. Wang took the bowl and took a closer look, then his expression changed. Nonsense. How can you give such a blood-breaking medicine to a pregnant woman? Isn't it life-threatening? Hearing this, everyone's expressions changed. Lu Changping's face was even more ugly. Chun Sheng put his hands on his hips and cursed, what a miracle doctor! Bah! This medicine was prescribed by Dr. Lu, who treats the nobles in the palace. How can I be worse than a bad old man like you? The medicine is not right for the patient, even if it is prescribed by the King of Heaven, I cannot drink it. Physician Wang is also a hard-tempered man. He has always been meticulous in his medical skills, and his expression at this moment was even more ugly. Worried that Lu Changping would take revenge, Suleun hurriedly said, please ask Dr. Wang to go in and see the patient. Divine Dr. Wang entered the door, and Rong Wenpo came out of the house and glanced at everyone in the yard. What are you doing standing still? You grandma has already started, why don't you go and boil hot water? Go and get some ginseng slices for preparation. I also want scissors, gauze, and spirits. End of this chapter.